All right, welcome to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
We have Path of Daggers, and
One of the
we're gonna
few good covers, actually.
we're gonna try to keep this one at least an hour or so. Not only because I have to get ready to leave, but I want this to render so I can upload it before I leave. Otherwise,
Yeah.
if you're not seeing this till Sunday, that means that was not a success. And but I'm gonna try to get it up so it's up today. Giggity.
All right. Well, it kind of jumps around here, so we're going to try and go from chapter 11 to 14. Let's see if we can make it through there, and then it goes back to Egwene, which is a pretty long story chunk. Um, and as per the usual, I don't think it's an accident. I think the chapter order here is entirely on purpose. And I think kind of a bit of a hint, because you're starting with two bad guys, as it were. You've got a chapter with Sevanna and the Shido, and then a chapter with mostly with Forsaken, with Sindane and Malhidian and Grendael. And then it goes to Rand for two chapters.
Well, we get some Cadsuane in between.
And there's some Cadsuane in between, but I really don't think it's an accident that you see the way the bad guys exercise authority, and then it goes to Rand being in charge.
Mm-hmm. Well, and with that little bit in between too, because there are forces at work in Rand's life that he is unaware of, and if he would just open his eyes, he would see. But so we get a little bit of both of those. Actually, three forces.
Yeah, that's a good point. That bit with Cadsuane and Sorilea then is sandwiched between those two sections, and
well, and also what is not explicit, you have to really kind of read between the lines. Samael had his plans that he was outfoxing Grendael with. They're still going.
Yeah.
They're still causing chaos. So he actually did what he was supposed to do.
Yep.
He just died in the process.
He was a good soldier, but
he died the ultimate death in the process.
Yep. Yep. All right, so
I guess you could say the same about Robin too, because the whole Andor plot starts with his messing things up.
And it goes on nearly to the very end of the books before Elaine gets things back under control.
Mm-hmm. But more specifically to this part of the book, because it all kind of comes to a head with Perrin's storyline.
Mm-hmm.
These little seeds of chaos that these now dead Forsaken were creating.
I don't have a lot to say on the Shido chapter.
I will say I actually kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we talk about the slog here, this was actually a good moment in it. We get we get Sevanna's point of view, which is great. We get the cattiness, the infighting, and where these plots go wrong, because she's so confident that just because they have the big secret that it's going to hold together. But really all it takes is a coalition to keep the secret with her dead.
Mm-hmm.
It just can't melt into chaos and it would fail. But if as long as everybody's on board in the uprising and the mutiny, then it's still the secret stays. So she says she has backups, but who's to know? I think that was an empty threat, you know.
And she kind of had I mean, you see her thinking about it of these, you can already see it kind of wearing thin with the other wise ones. Is she's thinking, why are these two, openly opposing me just by giving me looks or by disagreeing with me? They should be most in my hand. They're already starting to go, this isn't working anymore.
But what it really took was the two she thought were in her hand sliding over to the other side. As long as the dynamic was different, it was never going to work.
And then it switches to Galina Casban to her point of view as she's getting abused here. And it is one of the things that I think I was thinking about with the next chapter. It kind of goes along with this chapter of Jordan is really starting to humanize the bad guys. One, so you can get to know them, but two, so I think it's also strategic in this is how these inexperienced kids, yeah, Tavarin with great, abilities and talents, but still kids are able to hold these serious forces at bay because the bad guys aren't united. The bad guys aren't perfect. They're still human.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I got from this with her torture, and actually with the guy dying from torture in the previous part of the chapter, it made me think of remember in World War II, the POWs on the Japanese front were dying because they didn't understand. And of course, this is all post hoc learning, is Japanese people have like 3 or 4 feet more of intestine than we do. So they don't need to eat as much. So they were feeding them like they were Japanese people. So they didn't understand the difference in generational adaptation. And that's the same thing happening here. You got a wetlander who's completely differently adapted. And this cooking torture is going to take a wetlander out a lot quicker than an Aiel, because the Aiel have lived in the threefold land for so long that their sweat is so efficient, their heat distribution is so efficient compared to a wetlander that Galina has no chance.
Yeah, big time. I also like the switching to Galina's point of view also is giving us more about the Oath Rod. I think we talked about that with New Spring, because that was kind of the first time we got to see it firsthand from that person's perspective. And then you get it again here with Galina being bound to it and seeing from her point of view the way it kind of physically takes over almost.
Yeah, not only that, I like to really pick on some of the details. The Oath Rod they have in the tower has the 3 on it, and this one has the 101. And it's like, well, what does the number mean? I think it's the 101st Oath Rod.
Yeah.
Not that it can handle 101 oaths or something.
It was just a basic tool to them of punishment is what you kind of get reading between the lines. Because
I could see it used in like a real rehabilitative prison system versus a punishment prison system. It's like, okay, you were caught stealing. Well, you have to swear an oath to never steal again. You have lost this freedom of thought here.
Yeah, because it really is. The most striking part being when Sevanna tells Galina to be quiet, and she's still writhing in pain, and her mouth is acting like it's screaming, but no sound is coming out. Anything else on that chapter before we get to the hot chicks fighting?
No.
I like the continued use of Grendael here as kind of the new Lanfear, is what she's kind of been for the past couple of, really since Lanfear disappeared. And you started to get more Grendael, like you used to have Lanfear popping up and having these scenes with Rand.
I don't know if it's just the length of time and the fleshing out, no pun intended here, but she's probably the most interesting Forsaken of all of them, because I don't know if it's because we get more points of view from her, or it's because he just kind of gave her so much depth. You want to say, oh, she's just this thing that likes her toys, but no, that's just a very small part of her. She has all of these other things to her.
Yeah, and getting to see from behind her eyes, see those wheels turning as she's trying to evaluate a completely unknown situation. I mean, she is so lacking in information about what's actually going on here that there's no way she could ever guess what's going on. But to see the wheels turning as she's and figuring it out, thinking it through, but in a different way from someone else, the way from like her partner Samuel, or partner in crime Samuel might have thought about, because he would have been thinking about it tactically of, well, this is, you know, this is the move I would make if I wanted to do this. And Grendel's really trying to figure this out by evaluating Moghidian and looking at her. Okay, she's got to be the ringleader. Let me psychoanalyze her.
Well, and she even adapts, but her first mistake is actually because she has no clue who Sindane is. So she knows Mohidian so well that she could handle this situation, but the wild card that pops in is, oh my gosh, this other person's in charge. But then she actually adapts to it and handles the situation so much so that Shadow Heron has to come in and lend a hand.
Ooh, ouch!
Yeah,
But
I'm working on these puns here.
Snap, crackle, pop.
Because yeah, she actually won that situation without Shadow Heron.
Yep. Yeah, and you get it with the kind of the last thing she says there before Shadow Heron shows up, and she's asking, what did you hope to gain by this, Moghidian? So she's still focused on this. This is some kind of gain to advantage, but it makes absolutely no sense of what she was hoping to gain here, but Grendel can't think outside what she already perceives. And that's where Shadow Heron shows up and gets super creepy.
Well, he gives her a big compliment because she handled this so much better than the other two girls in his presence. And then the very end of that segment, she knows the Dark One better than all the other Forsaken, except possibly Moradin, because she's like, you know what? Moradin's the Nablus today.
Yep.
I know my boss.
Yep.
And I know when to hold and fold, and she's folding right now just so she can hold later.
Yep. All right. Then we get to one of my favorite sections in the series. It's another one of those things though where it's a little disappointing, because I feel like because this is a pretty good chunk of the chapter here when it switches to Cadsuane. So it's a pretty lengthy scene, and I kind of like with some of the things we were grumbling about with Perrin's storyline and with some of the other smaller storylines there, of it just, the payoff wasn't there. And this is another one of those. This is a great scene between two of the Titans, the strong female characters who are actually strong female characters. And they show up and they have this moment, and then I never felt like it really went anywhere.
Well, it was kind of an underlying theme for a while, but it's a spoiler to kind of go further why it kind of didn't go anywhere. So I'll save that to spoiler. It's a quick spoiler, so I'll say that though.
Again, with the not accidents of switching from Grendel and the way she thinks, and then to Cadsuane, because they're very similar with the way Cadsuane is reading people.
I was going to say they're both very great with theory of mind. It's just Grendel's kind of a psychopath, and Cadsuane's more of a sociopath. She'll do what needs to be done without caring, but she tries to do it. She tries to do good.
So the example I was going to bring up being when Cadsuane has Alana come in, and she just has this very simple, stupid trick that someone as smart and as cunning as an Aes Sedai should know this little trick of, she's not super powered. She saw your reflection when you came in.
Well, also one of the underlying themes that he's consistent with is they're so dependent on the power that something not of the power they seem to overlook all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a major blind spot. And Cadsuane uses that to overawe Alana because she knows how she's going to react, and she knows what buttons to push and how to appear imposing.
And he's consistent with it because some of the Forsaken fall into the same trap. Robin was one of them. He's a big he was like the mountain, but yet he would not fight physically because he was so dependent on the power. But also Tame has that same weakness throughout the whole series.
All right, so then after she schools Alana, Sorilea shows up, and it's loads of fun. Well, actually, before that, I find this interesting. Karuna, who is immediately unlikable when you first meet her, and is supposed to be. She's doubly uh arrogant and snobbish because she was a high-ranking noble and then went to become an Aes Sedai, and a fairly high-level one. So she's extra snooty. And now all of a sudden you just get this little blip of her where now suddenly she seems human and likable. Where
don't worry, she dies in episode 6.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. So she never gets to have
that way
this
we can get
moment
to the
of
nipple scene.
feeling pride.
Yeah.
Oh, nipples. So it is interesting that Sorilea gives her a compliment, and she's actually pleased and proud to have had it. So quite the turnaround. And there is a bit of a moment of weakness here for Cadsuane, because Cadsuane doesn't really get it, because she sees it as weakness on these darn kids' part, not as, no, these wise ones have something to offer and have a deeper understanding. And that's kind of the lesson she's going to quickly learn here when Sorilea basically goes into what they're teaching them, what these lessons are. And Cadsuane thinking, why are you doing this? It can't work because of these reasons. And then Sorilea says out loud, it will be difficult because of these reasons. And you get into a little the mechanics of the weaving with the hand motions and all, which we've seen a little bit of.
Is episode 5, by the way, for the fact checkers out there. Episode 5 was the nipples episode.
Okay.
Had to check my notes.
Nipples. So just within a couple of sentences, Sorilea has Cadsuane doing a complete 180 on her evaluation of the Aiel. So this is 308 and 309 in the paperback.
280 in the hardback.
When Cadsuane is asking, do you really think that they'll learn your ways? She asked that, and she's thinking, because you people, you savages, don't know the details, the rules, the theories. You can't possibly be as knowledgeable as we are. And then Sorilea just says out loud what Cadsuane was thinking was, learning a second time is difficult. How's the way she phrased it? Without all that hand waving you Aes Sedai do. So she completely surprises her with that, but then doubles down on it with the very next sentence of, the main thing Karuna Nachiman must learn is that she owns her pride. It does not own her. So much to unpack right there. But so not only does she get the knowledge part, but then she shows Cadsuane, you're not the only wise woman here that has been around the block for a while. And it's much like with Grendael, it's cool to see how quickly she adapts and reacts and changes. So she is completely changing her estimation and evaluation of Sorilea. And it's causing her to now kind of change her tack. Sailing term, tacking. you're angling slightly to the wind to keep moving forward. And they're doing the same thing, but for different reasons. And it's like only slightly different ways. And it's why I think both of them are so successful and around for so long. But the other thing that jumps out at me there is this is why modern.
She does go on right afterwards to show a little ignorance. So
Yes,
with the why can't
good point. Good point.
how are we going to punish Alana if it hurts the car Karn? And Cadsuane's like, it kind of doesn't work that way.
You know what?
Don't let her fool you.
you just gave me something. Let's expand this relationship. Let me give you a little something, giggity. And then as they feel each other out, to try and trust each other.
That was before the weave.
Yeah, but Sorilea, Cadsuane's already thinking that she's being open with me, and that is a big thing. That is a big favor for one of these women in general, but this particular woman, especially since she's one of the most respected, one of the leaders of the wise ones. And she's coming to me and being open about, herself and what's going on, because otherwise the Isle really are a closed culture for the most part. Where was I? Oh yes, modern writers and why they can't write strong female characters, even though they keep using the phrase strong female characters. She owns her pride, it does not own her. That is the downfall of lots of people. Famous, infamous, and just ordinary. And this is where compelling real characters come from, is somebody who has to learn that lesson and does and succeeds, or doesn't and suffers the consequences. And the modern writers are so prideful, they can't write well, and spoiled. They can't write a rise and a fall and a rise.
Yeah, you compared her to Grendael, which actually I didn't see it until you did that. The very last paragraph. She's taking the water oath.
Yes.
But and if their targets turned out to not be the same at all, she did not underestimate Sorilea as an ally or opponent, but Cadsuane knew which target had to be struck at any cost. So it's the same mentality. I'm going with this for now. But if it turns out not to be the right way, I am keeping my options open.
And then we get to the two Rand chapters here, 13 and 14. And it kind of dawned on me while I was flipping through earlier today. I really don't think that's an accident to see Sevanna and Grendael, and then now we see Rand, who we've seen hardening for a while now, and now we see him in full, badass jackass mode here of I am the law. And how it's getting worse the longer he's out here on his own, just surrounded by other men, and by soldiers who have to follow his orders. That's the main thing that jumps out at me with seeing seeing from his perspective.
Oh, it just made me think of something that, because we all talk about, if you could make it to where you never felt pain, that would be awesome. But no, pain is such a wonderful thing in our lives. Congenital insensitivity to pain and anhydrosis is actually a condition where you don't feel pain. And those people typically lose legs and fingers and eventually die young because they can't feel pain. So they tend to just keep going when a lot of us would stop, because you don't know you stepped on a nail by looking down and seeing you stepped on a nail. You stepped on a nail because you feel the piercing pain, and then you look down and see the nail.
Yep.
And so they would just keep walking through nails because they don't feel the pain. And that's kind of the mode he's in right now. He's trying to distance the pain so far that because he can't feel it, he's just going to keep walking through the briar patch, realistically.
And what did we just get done seeing is Cadsuane and Sorilea saying he needs to learn to laugh and cry again. Or as Sorilea says, he now only sees the Aiel as spears to be wielded.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is losing that humanity.
Which we get a little bit, if it's really subtle in that Sevanna chapter, but you get a little bit of the Aiel set themselves up for that as well. Because remember what she says about the Wetlander dying. It's because he could not embrace pain. He fought the pain the whole time. And they're so good at dissociating the pain when there's a goal that they basically become a spear. And even in the prophecies, they talk about the Aiel being the spear of the dragon, which is kind of where he gets the idea from. Yeah. So, but because they can have a sense of humor about it, it gives them some personal, individual humanity. But as a whole, as a people, they still kind of set themselves up for being that. Which we're in a world of fate and everything. That was on purpose. The threefold land was what formed them, right?
And Rand is kind of pushing that out on others as well. We know as the reader what the connection is here, and remember that Min had told him that you need Cadsuane. She's going to teach you and all the Ashaman something. And then floating like snow. The name of the chapter is the little soliloquy by, is it Moore? Yeah, Fedwin Moore, talking about how he had to kill a patrol of Sanchin. And Rand is asking if he's upset that he had to kill women. And even though, and you see in his head how much it is cutting him up inside as he goes through his list of names, but he's pushing that same mentality out on others by saying, you do what you have to do, and forget about it, which is what he's trying to do. And then, no, Hopwill, not more. Hopwill has that kind of creepy statement. 322, I piled the bodies in a hollow, he said in a flat voice. The horses, everything. I burned it all to ash. White ash that floated in the wind like snow. It didn't bother me at all. Rand heard the lie on the man's tongue, but Hopwill had to learn. So that's the lesson he's teaching those around him too. So they're also going to get worse. And then chapter 14, message from the Mahale. Was there anything that jumped out at you in this chapter?
14 or the one we just got through?
Well, yeah, back up a second. The one we just got through, if there's anything else you had thoughts on that one.
No, I think the opening to it where, like I said, he was so distanced from the pain. That was the first thing that jumped out at me. And then after that, you covered. It's the theme that we're pushing a theme right now. And yeah, there are fun details along the way, but now I think as we go forward, you do meet some people that are important for a while, like Gregorin. So yeah, just pay attention to those names. We talk about there's so many characters. He's one of them. Hopwill, of course, we've still got Deshiva going along. Just there are some important names that we meet here that kind of push forward the story.
Yeah.
Other than that, no, it's just the perpetuating of the theme, and he does it with himself, and like you said, through his leadership as well. Which, I mean, realistically, when we look at a lot of the kind of antagonists or the leadership role of some of these organizations that do bad things sometimes, it's almost beneficial for the person on the top to actually have those feelings and a little bit of empathy, but have the underlings be the ones to do the things that they can't do themselves. And it's the reverse here.
Yeah.
He's the one that's distancing himself from the feeling, and he's expecting everybody else to follow suit. Where,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for other things, Tame would be the perfect sidekick for Rand if he let himself be Rand. Because then he can be just like, oh, I know what Tame's going to do, but it has to be done. I'm glad he's doing it. That's kind of the Matt attitude. Matt would be like, I'm glad he's doing that, because I couldn't do that personally, but it is the thing that needs.
Well, I assume you mean especially the deserters. How many deserters? And he says that he wants their heads on the Trader's Tree. But the next time I visit the Black Tower, I want to see all of them, every deserter's head. Rather than, to your point, well, I'm glad I'm not the one that has to deal with that. And also, I think this is where he mentions the tea that they drink when someone starts to lose it.
Which, when you look at the things Tame does, that's a little bit humane.
Yeah, it actually is. We get a nifty little.
Well, except for the fact that starts to lose it can be arbitrary, and he could use it to take out his political rivals as well.
That too.
Yep. They're spreading misinformation.
Okay, so then it ends with the weirdness with Sidon, and the moment of where Dashiva isn't the absent-minded professor anymore, and he's seems to be a little shook up by what he's saying, what Moore is saying, when he about how Sidon wouldn't do what he wanted it to. It was hard to take hold, hard to make weaves, and Dashiva is that's not possible. Was it clear to you what is going on here? He's setting something up that's going to go through the rest of this book.
Yeah, well, in the Perrin chapter, they were a little bit more open about their, even though you don't get much of it. Who's with him? Dadgummit. Who's
I can't remember.
But they talked about how when the bowl was being used, we know it was the bowl, even though they don't know it was the bowl, that Satan was laced through there, and then everything was wrong after that. And so not only is it affecting the weather, but whatever was in that Turing Grail to use Satan messed up everything else. Why didn't it mess up Sadar as well? I don't know. Maybe because actual people were channeling into it, and it wasn't a construct coming out of the Turing Grail, or that made it complete, just like we see the difference between healing stilling between men and women. I don't know. I don't know the mechanism of it, but they did talk about how it was wrong after that for a while. But because remember, the dragon is also channeling Satan, and he's connected to the land, who's connected to the weather, and the weather just went through this whole flux where it's trying to recorrect itself. Satan may be doing the same thing as well.
I must be a moron, because it didn't dawn on me the first time I read that that the bowl is what caused that. So that one took me a minute to get.
Yeah, it's almost like it would have actually been preferable to have both men and women channeling into the bowl, but because they weren't.
Well, this is a good segue into spoilery thing. So go away if you're following along, and we'll pick up with chapter 15 next time. So the spoilery thought is that I seem to recall reading comments from Jordan from Q&As that the weirdness was because the bowl pulled Sidon in, but it wasn't being wielded, so that's why it was off.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because there was nobody channeling it there.
Exactly.
It's almost like it pulled it from all the sources around.
But I seem to recall a scene later in this book where it's strongly implied that the Domine lost control in a similar manner because they lightninged themselves.
Hmm.
But it may be that that's what the implication is, but it could be if you read the section, they might have been being hit by Ashaman and not known it. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that and see what it is exactly that Jordan's implying there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I just took it as it was because this thing was being used in a way it wasn't meant to be.
exactly.
But also I like to tie it to the earth being connected to Rand himself, and because the earth is in flux right now, Satan itself can end up in flux.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember if there were examples of it doing it for female channelers as well, and I think that's one, but I'm not sure.
But even
All right,
still, it's not consistent across the board.
what was the other? I think there was another
Well,
spoiler thing
the
that you
reason
thought you
why
had.
Sorilea and Cadsuane's bringing Rand back to humanity kind of seemed to go nowhere is because the person who should have been the person to do it anyways was the one who did it, which was Tam. It took him showing up for it all to come together. And it really the segue between what Sorilea and Cadsuane were doing and Tam coming in and talking to him it was kind of a clunky segue.
Yep.
But of course, that was with a new author, and who knows how he wanted to transition it. And maybe the note to that Tam was going to be the one to show up was there, but how you bridged the gap was not. But didn't Cadsuane bring Tam?
Yes.
So yeah, she might
She
have
went and
realized.
got
Yeah,
him. Yeah.
maybe it just wasn't clear enough that that was part of the plan all along.
Yeah. But then Tam comes out of that interaction yelling at them of what the hell did you do to my boy? Because because he has such a lunatic reaction to it. Um, brain farted. Oh, part of it though is I think part of it is what Sorilea says there when they're talking to Cadsuane is that we we messed up. And so we messed up initially. So now this is how he treats us. This is how he thinks about us. But we can't change course because we've already started down this road. So that may have been, kind of improvisational on their part.
On the comments, we didn't do them at the beginning, but Perrin is the most wasted, frustrating character in the series. One step forward, two steps back seems to be his motto. We can't really know what Jordan intended for this character, but I really hope it was better than what we got. Perrin goes from being the great character to a complete waste of time. I think there's many parts to this. One is, yes, I don't think the new author understood him. He was his favorite, but I don't think he understood what Jordan wanted. But we're still in the Jordan section.
Yeah.
And I think Jordan was a victim of his own success. He wrote him so good that some of the flaws he wanted him to have were already written out. And now we've got to pull back and make them flaws again because, oh my gosh, I messed up in doing so good with him to begin with. So I think there was a little bit of that as well. But also, Perrin is a little bit of a control freak. And when you look at being a control freak in a world that's basically literally going into entropy at a rapid rate, that's going to make you a kind of an outlier as far as where you fit into everything. It's great for the rebuild process, which is why I think they dropped the ball at the end of the book to not show any of that. But and it's one thing to say, well, that was supposed to be in the books that were supposed to come after. But once you realize those books weren't coming, you needed to put that in the book.
Yeah, and that's where I think maybe Scott is coming from at least partially here. From my point of view, I feel like that was I feel like that's what was supposed to happen. You were supposed to start to get a hint of that when uh Perrin and Matt's stories finally came together. That part there, when they're just kind of just outside of Camelin, uh, that felt incredibly rushed. That whole scene, it felt rushed. It was kind of confusing, and then very quickly, Perrin and Matt are off again doing separate adventures that are seemingly tangential to what's going on here.
And then Matt is just nothing but woohoo moments after that, and Perrin does the weird dream thing.
Mm-hmm. So I feel, and also partly with the forging of Mjolnir or whatever he calls it, the forging of Mjolnir, I think was supposed to also be a setup to the introduction of the hammer of the rebuilder, because it wasn't just that he made a hammer, it was that his tavernness led to a rediscovery of a talent of using the power to help forge things. But then it went away again, and it was like I feel like there was supposed to be more at that scene, at that moment in the books.
Which, yeah, and there's also something to be said about you can't just keep piling talents onto people.
Yeah.
And he already had the talent from book 1, talking to the wolves. And yeah, we had the blacksmith theme throughout, so it wouldn't have made sense for anybody else. But now it's just like, okay, one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. And it's like, okay, we're done with these woohoo cool moments. Let's have a good story here.
Okay. Where are my next one? Yeah.
Perrin seems obsessed. He should have been easily able to tell Rand could not use Massima as he originally intended, and that he's not some leader. Okay, so yeah, Massima's we know Massima's bad. Well, and I think he actually does come around to that with the I will hang anybody comment when he has, but at the same time, he's the leader I was talking about earlier. He can't be the one that does it. Not very well, anyways. He kind of needs that person to do it for him.
Yeah.
Which
that's where Fail is complimentary.
yes, that's where it actually was a good part of the story. Is her whole point in that whole sequence was to be that person for him. Yeah. All the little stupid infighting between the two of them in the process was completely unnecessary.
I'm also not sure how much. Well, I think the main thing isn't that Perrin doesn't see it. It's he doesn't see a way to fix it, and he's the fixer. He wants to fix it.
He doesn't see a way to fix it without doing the bad thing that he thinks is bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is what I think he's really objecting to there with the wise ones is their insinuation that we're just going to take him out. No, I'm not going to be part of that.
Well, and back to the control freak thing. He's a zero COVID person, right? He wants to do this with nobody dying. When realistically it's as few people as possible dying.
And to your point, he very quickly sees that when he has to oversee the execution of these people who were burning a family alive, and anyone who tried to escape, they whacked. So he sees that very quickly. We'll have to keep an eye out. I wasn't sure from my memory. I thought he basically moved over to not we can't take Massima out to how do we do this right when Fail is kidnapped, though. So that kind of forces them together. And forces them into common cause. I still don't think he ever really comes around to, Fail's or the wise one's way of thinking, but that's where he's got a wife.
Yeah, I my only beef is that they could have had this whole dynamic with their relationship being what it was when it ended in book 4. So you didn't have to have the whole other part.
Yeah, the tension could have simply been
that she
them.
wants to do the bad thing, the
Yes,
good bad thing,
there.
and he
It,
wants to try to do the most best thing.
it's not that he doesn't remember how his wife likes it, giggity. It's that, yeah, they're complementary, but they're still figuring it out, and they don't necessarily see eye to eye on some of these issues. They could have been feuding over that. It didn't have to be the dumb
This whole
thing.
jealousy, stupid,
It,
yeah.
what which would have made the whole jealousy stupid work better, because if Bearlane's the only one playing the game, it becomes kind of sad and comical instead of annoying that she thinks she's playing this game and she's going to win, and they're not even paying attention to her.
Well, and there's the other dynamic that comes into it with the way his people looked at him
Hmm.
with all the things that come down, but that never went anywhere.
Yeah.
It was a kind of a pointless reputation game that ended up just not going anywhere in the long run.
Yeah.
Maybe it was there to distance himself as their friend and for him to finally become the leader he needs to be, because they're no longer his buddies anymore. But that would have been a weak connection.
I'm curious about this last comment of Bearlane not understanding. Um, I'm not sure how much she doesn't understand, but then would she care?
Yeah.
Because I think you're kind of implying there that if she understood, she wouldn't have been playing this game. I don't know how much she would care, because she's also the kind of noble that, well, the underlings are there to be under me. Giggity.
Well, but also we get glimpses of the fact that yes, she's dealing with a different culture right now with the Two Rivers, but she's done this throughout the books and has adapted.
Hmm.
Why can't she adapt in this one case?
Yeah, because I think her beating Fail is more important to her,
Mm-hmm.
because Perrin's in charge. Who cares what his people think about what he does morally? He's in charge. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it matters to Perrin. All right. Did you have any other thoughts on that?
Uh, Grendael. Quick thought on Grendael. I thought she was the most interesting Forsaken, and I think we missed something here, because she would have been an interesting case if we would have had a Forsaken jump ship,
Hmm.
because she is very opportunistic. She does a lot of evil things, but as far as actually buying in to the complete Great Lord plan, no, he was a tool to her as much as she is to him. And I think at some point she realized that that wasn't going to work for her. But at the same time, when we're looking at a time when the tides could turn either way, she would have been an interesting person to be like Asmodean 2.0, right?
Hmm.
But of her own free will and not being trapped there. Maybe a feud with Sindane, who was once Lanfear, causing her to do something on the other end,
Right.
and then saying, you know what, I've sided myself with this. I'm going to die either way, or I have less chance of dying if the good guys win now, that
Hmm.
kind of thing. And that would have been an interesting thing. Other than that, we ended up getting a nuclear bomb. So it's
Yeah,
which I
pretty
know
much.
it was part of the Rand rage moment that we were
Hmm.
supposed to have, but you could have done that with Masana or Semirage or any
Yeah.
number of
Yeah.
others.
Um, Shidar Heron's reaction to Grendel, the I wonder if there's supposed to be an implication there. I wonder if that was supposed to be, in Jordan's mind, a hint that she killed Samael and the Dark One knows it and doesn't care.
That she killed Samael?
Not Samael.
Asmodean?
No, yeah, yeah. That she killed Asmodean and that he doesn't care. But later, because when she kind of gets brought to
Doesn't
heel.
Morden, when he's talking to Mohidian way back, say something about Asmodean getting what he deserved?
Yeah, something about dying a traitor or yeah, traitor's death or something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
So not
Um,
only not caring, but approving of it.
yeah. But then later it seems like, two or three is too many as she gets Monkidian nuked. Or not Monkidian, who is it she gets nuked? Was it Monkidian? Ah, well, we'll get there when we get there. But then apparently, you know, you can't just go around killing other Forsaken. But if you do it once, all right, good on you. That was cunning and bold and evil, which is what I like. But don't kill too many of my pets.
Well, but there's also the point that he wasn't a pet at that point. He had been freed from that to do other things.
Yeah. All right. That's all I got, and we'll be on to Egwene next time, so we'll understand if there are no comments, Scott.
All right. Well, we had a short one, but it was actually covered a lot of ground, and hopefully I can get this up today.
Mhm.
Again, if you're seeing this on Sunday, I apologize. It's Zoom's fault at that point because it's at their speed as soon as I hit stop record.
All right, we'll
All
see
right.
y'all then.
See y'all then.